So what is up, guys? Welcome to my review for the newest installment in the Final Destination franchise, Bloodlines. Now, I have a little bit of a mixed relationship with this franchise because on one hand, I have a lot of fun with it. Cheesy, campy fun, but I acknowledge it's not high-level art. It's not one of my favorite franchises, to be honest. But it's hard to even think of the 2000s without thinking about how impactful the original movie is, how campy it is. Because even to this day, 20 years later, people are still afraid of flying. They're really afraid of driving behind log trucks. So this is a very effective franchise that has inspired phobias in generations of horror fans, and I'm here for it. I wish we got one of these movies every year. I like it. I think horror is better when we have these movies. If you're not familiar whatsoever with what the Final Destination franchise is, basically every one of these movies has some giant inciting incident, some catastrophe where a ton of people die, but it's prevented through a premonition. So because of that, Death feels cheated. Death sends a what you doing text at 2 in the morning and he comes to clap cheeks. Throughout these movies, Death feels pissed that he was cheated and he's out to kill them in the most ridiculous, asinine death contraption setups ever. These Death Rube Goldberg machines, if you will. When I come to a Final Destination movie, I come there for two reasons. First off is that giant inciting incident, the premonition, the catastrophe. What ridiculous way can we kill off droves of people? The second thing I come to these movies for is to see the death contraptions throughout the film. How are we going to kill off our cast throughout the movie and have a great time with these elaborate setups that are just overly creative and ridiculous, but they're fun? And I'm here to report immediately. I think Bloodlines satisfies both of those conditions in the upper echelon of this franchise because the inciting incident, the giant catastrophe, is absolutely awesome. I thought it was hilarious, creative, probably the second best in this franchise behind that log truck. The only thing I would say is a negative is the CGI in the opening is absolutely terrible. That's actually a consistent complaint I have about this film throughout it from start to finish. They use a lot of CGI in their creative kills, but the CGI isn't very good, so I think it kind of waters it down, takes away the effectiveness. But as for that opening scene, it was incredibly personal to me because you have these people in this 500-foot high glass tower, like the Space Needle kind of. It's very claustrophobic, very small, 500 feet up, the floor is made of glass, everything is see-through. I absolutely hate heights, so even explaining this in the review is giving me sweaty palms. But you have all of these people up here and they're having a ruckus time, they're dancing and they're singing and they're pounding on the glass, and it's just nerve-inducing because I don't like heights. This movie sets the tone very early on that this is a very self-aware entry into this franchise. Comedic, over-the-top, ridiculous. Some of the kills in this movie are so overboard, but you can't help but laugh and have a good time. There were 2 or 3 kills in the opening scene I verbally laughed out loud at. I was having a good time just, what is going on? It's so excessive, it's so over the top. You have characters trapped in this tower trying to get out. The more they try, the more ridiculous ways they die. This is one of the most effective openings of this franchise. It's not been since the first or second movie I feel like it's made me feel so uneasy. Because it's so believable, it's somewhere you can not get out of. It was just a very uneasy setting that I really enjoyed. So I would rate the opening the second best behind the log truck. I'd give this opening as a whole about a 9 out of 10. I'm completely forgiving the terrible CGI because the rest of it is just that damn good. But if I have one complaint about it, it feels like whenever you have these movies, there's always like some inciting incident that makes this take place. It kind of feels like what goes on in the premonition was inevitable. Like it was going to happen anyways. Normally in these films, you have something happen, like somebody spills something or something drops from the floor, or the wind blows something in. I'm not going to give away what happens, but something happens in the opening of this film, and I don't really think it even mattered in the grand scheme of things and what ends up happening. It feels like what transpires was going to happen anyways. They foreshadow it before anything even leads into it. Maybe the whole thing went over my head. Maybe that's the whole point of Death feeling cheated in this scenario, but it felt a little bit half-baked compared to the setups of some of these films. This movie's also a little bit different than the other Final Destination movies because the other ones usually follow a main character and a bunch of strangers who survive some event because of a premonition. In this movie, you have a main character who can't sleep because she's having consistent nightmares about somebody named Iris, and she doesn't understand why. But Iris is actually the one who had this premonition, so it's down her bloodline, hence the name of the movie, decades in the past. So she seeks out, meets this person, and finds out what happened, what transpired, in hopes to stop these visions. And in talking to Iris, she finds out that Death feels cheated and it's out to get her and her entire family tree. So that's what makes this movie a little bit different. You have characters, I don't want to say you root for them, but because we have a main character and this is about her family tree, you naturally feel a little bit more connected to the characters because you have her, the people she knows, as opposed to a bunch of archetype strangers we just want killed off as fodder. So that by default gives this movie stronger characters than a lot of the entries into this franchise, in my opinion. So I really like that dynamic, and I feel like it added a stake that these movies usually lack. This movie feels like it's very aware of us as audience members and how we've evolved towards this franchise, how we kind of approach them. It feels like they're having a lot of fun teasing us, you know, showing us dangling chandeliers, shards of glass, a lawnmower starting. And us as audience members, we've seen so many of these movies now, it does a good job of making us go, huh, wonder how that's going to kill somebody. So much so that they even tease you at points and have somebody pick up something they're not supposed to and then set it down right before something bad will happen, teasing the fact that it knows us as the audience members are good now at solving these films, so they're having fun diverting expectations. I think this movie does that really well. But it does that throughout the course of the entire movie, just teasing things that could potentially kill people, going away from them. Sometimes they actually do kill people. But I think that entire thing is a lot of fun in this film and done a lot better than some of the most recent entries prior to this. And when you get to the kills themselves, I thought they were satisfying and creative and unique enough. There's a lot of stuff we haven't seen yet in the franchise that happens in this film, and it's cool after all of these movies they still find creative ways in these giant contraption setups to kill people. They're ridiculous, extravagant setups as always, but these seem somewhat more believable because the things that happen are related to everyday life. Again, not believable at the same time in its own Final Destination way because it's so elaborate how we get to the point that people die. So again, going back to my opener, the two prongs, you have the inciting incident, the giant opening scene premonition, awesome. Second best or maybe the best in the franchise. Then you have the overall kills littered throughout the movie, and I think they're very satisfying as well. So both of the reason I would want to check out a movie like this, I found satisfying. Really, the only negatives I have to this film is the CGI is just really bad throughout. I just don't like CGI in general, and I think this movie kind of overuses it, but they kind of have to pull off what they want. And second off, just the characters, as always in this franchise, I'm not going to say they're awful, but you naturally kind of don't get to know them enough to care. I think they're better than a lot of the entries. Something else I just want to say is rest in peace Tony Todd, to one of the goats of horror. I love the guy's work. I'm going to really miss him in the genre. We're all going to. Really cool to see him reprise his role again within this franchise one final time, but he will be sorely missed, so rest in peace. But yeah, as always, I've seen a crazy amount of hyperbole that this is like the best entry in this franchise, and it's just an awesome horror film, one of the best of the year. As always, I want to say temper your expectations. I think this is a very strong installment, probably top 3, but this is not something that's going to be life-changing if you've already seen these other films. Again, this feels fairly derivative compared to a lot of these movies in this franchise. It's just done really well. So a lot of this film, I don't think is going to have the standing over the years. It's going to be fairly forgettable, even though it's a good film. I don't think it's going to be as iconic and spark phobia like The Log Truck did. Absolutely awesome opening, some creative kills, gruesome comedic value sprinkled throughout. Characters are probably a little bit stronger than the majority of these films, but again, suffers in some capacity just due to the nature of these movies. Awesome to see Tony Todd one final time. I'm glad this franchise is back. Give me one of these movies every single year. I had a good time with Bloodlines. So if you guys did get around to seeing Bloodlines, comment down below. Let me know how it compares to the rest of this franchise for you. And comment down below. Let me know if you maybe want me to do a ranking of the previous ones and then an entire ranking video. Maybe I'll do that sometime. As always, like, comment, subscribe down below. All of that helps the channel. But I will see you in the next review. Peace!